Antichrist mathematics. Now, just a preface, this video is being recorded the last day of 2024, December 31st, 2024, before any of this even happens. So just so you know. So again, Antichrist mathematics. 2031 is 7 years away. 2031 will be the 2,000-year anniversary of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Because Christ was crucified and resurrected in 31 AD. Not 32 AD, because the scripture says Christ was killed on the Passover. In 32 AD, the Passover was on a Monday. And not in 33 AD either, because in 33 AD, the Passover was on a Friday. And Christ was not killed on a Friday. If you think Jesus Christ was killed, crucified on a Friday, you still have a lot to learn. And also, Christ was not killed in 30 AD, when the Passover was on a Wednesday. Because if he was, then the temple wouldn't have been 46 years in building, it would have been 47 years in building. So knowing the date of the Passover helps us narrow it down to it was 31 AD was the year Christ was crucified, when Passover was on a Wednesday. And then 3 days, 3 nights later, he was resurrected Saturday night before sunset. And then the women got to the tomb Sunday morning to find it empty. So again, 2031 is 7 years away. If you study Bible prophecy, 7 years ought to be ringing off a lot of bells in your mind. So since a day is 1,000 years, according to Psalm chapter 90, verse 4 in the Old Testament, and 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8 in the New Testament, that means 2,000 years is 2 days. Adam lived 4,000 years before Christ, or 4 days. Christ lived 2,000 years ago, again 2 days. So we of this generation are 6,000 years from Adam, or a total of 6 days, when you take into account what's called the Genesis Code. Each day is 1,000 years. The 7th millennium, Messiah returns to earth to place Satan in a hole and rule 1,000 years. The 7-day renewal of earth, in Genesis chapter 1, lays the foundation for God's 7,000-year master plan. If Trump confirms the 7-year peace deal when he takes office in 2025, the first 3.5 years will appear to be going well. So let's cover that. Daniel 9:27 says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." Hebrew Shabuah, meaning 7 years. "And in the midst of the week, or in the middle of the 7 years, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease." Because in the middle of the 7 years, he comes to his destruction. And then Satan counterfeits the resurrection. Now you notice the Antichrist counterfeits Christ. Christ returns in Revelation 19 on a white horse. So Antichrist comes riding in on a white horse in Revelation chapter 6. And also here, the true Messiah was killed, cut off in the middle of a literal week, Wednesday. Everyone calls it Hump Day because it's the middle of the week. That was the day he was cut off. So Antichrist mimics that by dying not in the middle of a week of 7 days, but in a week of 7 years. See, he dies in the middle. "And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." And also, if you'd like to look up Isaiah 28, 15 and 18, it's referred to as the covenant of death and agreement of hell. All right, so also you got to keep in mind this Antichrist comes in peaceably, and it's by peace he destroys many, Daniel 8:25. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, "When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." So again, going over the mathematics, the Antichrist mathematics, 2025 2026, 2027, and halfway through 2028, it will appear fine. It's the last 3.5 years that he will be Satan in the flesh. See, the last half of 2028 makes half a year. Then we got 2029, 2030, 2031. That's 3.5 years later, when the Messiah returns to crush Antichrist. You got to keep in mind, Trump hasn't had his deadly wound, that little graze of his ear. Anyone who considers that a deadly wound, if you went to Bible college, you need to get your money back. Because the scripture makes it explicit that the Antichrist's deadly wound happens in Jerusalem, referred to as in the midst of the seas, because Jerusalem lies between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. So Trump's deadly wound will happen in Jerusalem. So again, Trump will be positioned in Jerusalem for a counterfeit resurrection. And look up those verses about in the midst of the seas. Daniel 11:45, he comes to his end in the midst of the seas. He's slain. Ezekiel 28, verses 2 and 8. Again, he's in the midst of the seas. And Revelation 13:3 is when he gets his deadly wound, and then his deadly wound is healed when Satan enters the body, and then he's up walking around claiming to be God for the last 3.5 years. And all whose names are not written in the book of life will be deceived. So unfortunately, most of you, when Trump's sitting in the temple claiming to be God, most of you still won't believe he's the Antichrist. So this video is designed to shake you out of your apathy, to wake you up, and to show you how soon these things are happening.